Happy to be here this morning. It's great to see so many faces in a new year. Hopefully you all had a good Christmas and you had the good celebrations last night. I wonder if you have some mixed reports about 2022. Some people I speak to get really excited about 2022. It was class, really good year, loads of good stuff happened, but perhaps it brought some bad news for some people as well. Some of the good news, though, is that the shops that we can go to, the places that we can go, the work that we can do, the families that we can see, we can now do those things after 2 years of being stuck at home over Christmas and New Year. And second to that, Messi finally won the World Cup and will go down as the greatest footballer who has ever lived. Those are good news things. You've maybe even had some good news personally, a new job, a wedding, a baby on the way maybe. But if I were to guess, I would say that some of us, if not most of us, look over 2022 with a level of disdain. The highlight reel is potentially filled with things that would make a good TV drama in our lives. Family feuds, the emotions of difficult times, living during a financial crisis. For even some of us, we've lost loved ones. And so we look back over 2022 with perhaps a sigh of relief as the clock struck 12 midnight last night. And if you're anything like me, you love a fresh start, the opportunity to start again. Time to dust off the running shoes and the healthy cookbooks. It's time to turn the crinkled pages of our Bibles as we begin another attempt to read it all in a year again and maybe give up about March. And I wonder, as we open God's Word this morning for the first time in this new year, in this new season, do you feel like I do sometimes, frustrated? Not where you want to be, not where you thought that you would be at this point in your life with your faith. Lacking the faith maybe that you even had at some point in the last year. Do you feel as though the Lord does not see you sometimes? Despite your prayers, your thoughts, and your heart's desires? With the year you've had, do you feel as though the Lord has disregarded you in your time of need? As I've considered my own heart over the last number of weeks, trying to think through how I'm best going to understand Isaiah 40 and apply it to us, I've noticed a couple of things that came to the surface that are definitely true for me and might be true for you. Number one is this. Isn't it true that when difficulty comes our way, that we automatically put ourselves at the center of the universe? And we go, why me? Why does bad stuff always happen to me? Why do I have these questions? Why do I feel like this? And we forget the circumstances around us. But by the same merit then, number two, we take God off his rightful position and we ask questions of him that seem fruitless. Mostly because we actually already know what the answer is. If you feel like you have the potential to fall into that category, I've got more good news / bad news for you. You're in good company. The Bible is littered with characters who go through difficult times in their lives, and instead of recognizing that it's the sinful nature that brings them to that point and causes the hardship, they wonder like us. Where are you, God? Why have you left me in this mess? Do you even hear my prayers? And Isaiah sees this in the people that he has come to correct and rebuke and encourage. And today I think there's some things that we can learn from Isaiah 40 that will give us a real source of encouragement and strength as you go home and begin to think about what 2023 is going to look like for you. Where does this encouragement come from, you might ask? Why is it different than the self-help, feel-good gurus that are plaguing the internet at the minute? Well, Isaiah is telling us all of the strength that is found here is not found in our ability to wake up earlier. It's not found in our ability to hustle more, to do more, to read more, to learn more, to eat less and move more. No, the strength that is found here is found in God alone. Not only can we hear this good news today, but we can know it. Before we get into the main things that I'd like to pull out of the verses, it's important that we first understand what was going on in the life of Isaiah and those around him that prompted what are some of the most famous words in all of the Old Testament. As we jump into chapter 40 of Isaiah, it's important to point out that the first 39 chapters are written accusations and warnings sent from God to the people of Israel and the surrounding nations, in the hope that they will turn away from their wicked ways and follow the Lord in order to avoid his oncoming wrath. The Israelites were exhausted and worn down from years of captivity and imprisonment. Life had thrown them circumstances, enslavement, mockery, ridicule, and perhaps like us, because of what life has brought them, they now lack the sense of spiritual direction. And so if you read the whole book, you'll find that it almost splits down the middle. We'll have the warnings, what will happen if they don't change their ways, and we have the rebuild, how to change their ways according to the will of God. And as those who have faithfully gone before us and understood the book, I lean on them to say that there are three things that we point out in these verses that will help us. We have, first of all, the problem, secondly, the promise, and thirdly, the prescription. And if you forget everything else that I do today, just remember those three things, especially the young people that are sitting here. Number one, the problem. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord. My right is disregarded by my God. As we zoom out of the broader context of the book and into chapter 40, we see a little bit of what is going on around them. And it's perhaps something that you've admitted to yourself this morning as we begin to open God's Word. You've been battered by the system. Life gets hard. You've been battered by other nations, by themselves internally, the people of God. And God's people are saying, God doesn't see me anymore. Like a child when they don't get their way, they experience what they think to be the absence of God. But instead of recognizing the truth of what is going on around them, they think God doesn't love them anymore. Have we ever felt like that? And Isaiah here is asking the question of them, do me a favor, people of God, look at your heart. What is going on in there? Why do you ask such questions? Why does your heart so deceive you to say things like, God does not see me in exile? He doesn't see me when I'm alone. Why have you slipped into this self-sulking state? Why have you put yourself at the center of all things and forgotten who your God is? The God who has saved your ancestor, Jacob, from exile, as though he won't also do it for you. You know, as I read this, I get the sense that God is using a prophet in the Old Testament to speak to people perhaps the same way you have heard a parent speak to a child, or perhaps you as a parent has spoken to your child. When the age-old accusation rolls in on a Friday night that I know all of you parents have heard, because I know mine have, why do we never get McDonald's for dinner? Well, actually, if you just took yourself out of your emotional state for 2 minutes and your natural craving for chicken nuggets, you'll remember that last Saturday we actually had McDonald's for dinner. The accusation feels real from your child and to you, but at the same time, it's actually not real, is it? Here's another one that I know some of you will be able to relate to today, or maybe not. But when I'm at home and Claire asks me to do something, sometimes, not all the time, I'll forget to do it, right? It's bad news. Now, what Claire sees is I've asked Brian to do something, and he's chosen not to do it. I'm going to throw the fellas a bone this morning. That's usually not how it happens. Usually what happens is we get stuck in our heads and we have a million things that we're thinking about, and the task gets moved around, and we forget to go back to the task, and then you come home and we run to do it then, when we see your car coming into the driveway. You see, we become so blinded by our circumstances and the things that are around us that we become almost frozen in time and unable to turn our heads to see the truth. The bottom line is, you just asked us to do a task. All the excuses don't really matter. That's what's going on with God's people here in Isaiah 40. They have once known the truth of God, the task at hand, who has saved them many times throughout their long history. But against the backdrop of hardship and tough circumstances, difficult times, it becomes increasingly hard to see where God is. And so we have the questions. Why has God turned away from me? Why has he left me behind? And I wonder, against the backdrop of 2022, with all the things that have gone on, everything that has happened in your life, do you have some of those questions burning inside of you? Do you feel as far down the road with God as you'd expected to be at this point in your life? Do you feel as though things have drifted in your spiritual journey? The things that we bump shoulders with in this life offer two things, I believe. An opportunity to look inward, or the opportunity to look upward to God. If we're honest, we all know that our natural tendency is to look inward, don't we? I offer you the same challenge that Isaiah brings to the Israelites. Check what is going on in your heart. Why do you feel this way? Is it really the Lord forgetting you? Or do we sometimes put obstacles and boundaries and barriers in front of him? The good news is that we are not left alone to figure that part out. There is hope for those who are in need of encouragement this morning. And it comes in the form of an incredible promise that is found from verse 28 onward. So first of all, we have the problem, and secondly, we have the promise. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow faint or weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases their strength. Just like the child who has accused the parent of never bringing them to McDonald's, the parent is left with no option but to present the truth to them. That the child may see the reason behind and recognize that the issue isn't the lack of fast food in their life, but it's an overinflated view of self and the desire and entitlement to get things the way they want them. I want McDonald's now. God, I want to see you now. I don't care about the past. I'll forget it all. I just need to see you now again, forgetting what he has done. Isaiah begins here by offering another question that will make the accusers peer through their history and see what God has indeed been with their ancestors through difficult times. He is exhorting, look, you have accused God of forgetting you, but perhaps the one with the forgetfulness problem here isn't actually God. Maybe it's you. Perhaps it's the 50 to 70 years of captivity in Babylon that you don't see where God is and you don't view him as the same. Perhaps you've become numb to the power of God and blind to his grace that has been given to all who acknowledge him. We have something to learn here, I think. Isaiah was living in a world of complainers. People who were downtrodden, hurt, with busted egos. It was infecting the people everywhere, so much so that they could no longer see the truth about God. Can you see how that might be us here today at Hamilton Road Baptist Church? We live in a world where information is a click away. People's opinions no longer have any scrutiny process to see whether or not they're true. We are told what and how to think so that we don't offend our neighbors, and we call it love. We're inundated with Netflix and Amazon Prime and YouTube and Twitch and World Cup highlights. That we think the only thing that really matters is the next season or who the new player is going to sign for in the new year. Are you like me in this way? Do you also need a trip to the spiritual Specsavers because you've got blurry vision of God, or maybe you just can't see him at all? And so we end up in the same rut as the Israelites in Isaiah 40, accusing God. Have we forgotten the God who has saved us out of our sin and into new life? If you have, here is a reminder. He is everlasting. Which means he is the same God that saved you when you were 5 or 10 or 20 or 40 years old. He is the same God. He has not changed, and while you may feel different about it, he has continued to be the same God. We can be sure of this, that the Bible, which is the final authority on earth, has not forgotten him as the one who is everlasting, unchanging, eternal, and good. The one who has created all things and holds it together by his hands. Who sustains the stars in the sky and the breath in your lungs. I'm not sure how you feel about it now, but I want to depend on knowing the truth rather than the thoughts in my own head as a self-confessed slacker at times. Someone who's as inconsistent with things like drinking water every day and sleeping properly at night. And yet we forget God. There is a drastic difference between who God is and who we are. And my encouragement to you is not to overinflate yourself and assume that you know better than the Lord of all creation. He has not forgotten. We are the forgetful ones. You've had some time to think about your 2022, and I assume that, like most of us, you feel a wee bit tired and weakened from everything that everyday life brings. Frustrated at slow progression, maybe even excited about the opportunity to start something new in 2023, the chance of renewal. It's at this point that we read about the everlasting, unchanging God. And I ask you a question at this point. Where does your strength come from to do it all? Do you find it in the hope that life will just become better someday? Do you find it in more money that brings additional security in this life? Is your strength found in the things of this earth, which will wither and fade? Is it found in the romance of life, finding that perfect balance? My hope this morning that as we finish with chapter 40, that we find our strength and our power in the only one who can really sustain it. An author says this about God and the relationship with the Israelites that I found helpful. God is such eternal creator and untiring that they, the Israelites, never need to doubt his capacity. He is also possessing such unfathomable wisdom that he does not change. As creator, he has all the glories, attributes, and powers mentioned in Isaiah 40, 27 to 31. As not growing tired or weary, he has never had to abandon any of his purposes as unrealized or postpone them while he rests. In other words, those seasons that we go through, God does not go through those. Those moments when we feel tired and we don't want to go to church anymore, God does not go through that. Those moments when we don't want to pick up the Bible, those moments when we don't want to think about God, God does not go through that. He is unchanging. He is unrelenting. An incredible truth about God, nonetheless. But it doesn't stop there. This morning, I want to encourage you with this. If you're weak or faint, God will give you power. If you have no strength, God will give you strength. Not only is he all-powerful, creator of the universe and all-knowing, he covered the one accusation that often comes his way. God is with us. Incredible. He cares for us, so much so that he gives us strength and provides us power to do the unthinkable. Church, we will always be people who forget what God has done. But how glad are we that God never forgets us, never forgets the work that he has started in us and will see through to completion, never forgets to show us grace and mercy every morning as we wake. How do we know that this will happen? How can we be sure that the Lord will do this for us? Because he always has. It's usually a pretty good tool of measurement for most things. In 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah, who we all know, just slayed all the prophets of Baal and felt discouraged because Jezebel was going to come and kill him. And so he comes to God and he says this, Lord, life is too much. I am hungry, I'm weak, I'm discouraged, and I'm lonely. If we look at the language that Elijah used and others like Paul in the Bible, they attribute the loss of strength at times to the journey of life. In other words, it's pretty normal that the longer you live, the more weak and frail and tired and fed up we can feel about life. Another way of saying this is that as you get older, you lose strength. If you have felt like Elijah, the promise of the Bible narrative is that you can rely on God for strength. Amazing. It's at the end of this segment in verse 30 and onwards that we find the prescription. We have heard lots of what not to do. And now we're going to find out what it is that we should do. The prescription is this, verse 30 and 31. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings like eagles. They'll run and not be weary. They'll walk and not be faint. We get to verse 30 of chapter 40, and Isaiah begins to talk about youth and young men. So any of you youth and young men and young ladies who are in the room today, this is important for you to listen and hopefully take some of it away. You too will become exhausted and fall down. Probably not what you wanted to hear on a Sunday morning. As people who play sport and stay up all night playing video games, as people who enjoy the run of the party with your friends and coming in here on a Friday night to youth club and going crazy for a few hours, you too will someday lose your strength if it is not found in the Lord. We all recognize that when things are going well, when circumstances are on our side, people have the tendency to feel invincible, right? Have you ever met anyone like that? The feeling that life will just always be great. I'll always have my health because I'll look after myself. I'll always have my money because I'll invest it properly. I'll always have these people in my life because I'm good at relationships. We assume that there's a bunch of things that we can do to make life great for ourselves. But then we're told in verse 30 that even people that those bad things should never happen to, like our youth and young men, even they will lose strength. Even those will grow weary and begin to ask the same questions of God that you and I as adults have. Isaiah uses this image of youth to flatten the playing field for us all. Because the older people in the community of God in these days will have been looking at the younger people in the community of God and saying, like, they have their life ahead of them. I really wish that I was that young again to be able to work, to be able to move the way they do, to be able to live a life of freedom the way they do without all the attachments and all the weight that is put on us as we grow older. Isaiah's saying it's no different, because someday they will be in your position. It may sound discouraging, but there is encouragement coming your way. It doesn't matter how your life is going right now, if you're young and fit and healthy or not. The bottom line is this: God has told us all of our strength will fail if it is not found around him. But God's strength will never fail. We are told that there is no avoiding the state of feeling weak. But we are told that there is only one way to renew our strength. And look, it's not becoming the best version of you in 2023. That's not how this is done. But rather, there is a way. And here it is, the prescription. Those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. Easy. Simply just wait on the Lord then. We can all go home, rest assured that all we have to do to hit the nail on the head is wait, right? See the contrast here? Isaiah is saying to people, you live in a world that makes you tired and blind because of the circumstances and because of your own hearts and your own thoughts, and you lack strength, and you blame God because you forget the truth that you have already known. But if you wait upon the Lord, he'll renew your strength. If you could just stop frantically running around for just a few minutes and take a moment, you would see that God, who has been at work in the beginning, is also at work now and will be at work when it's all over for us. He is the only one that we can depend on. Could you imagine the sense of frustration among God's people when Isaiah said this to them? All of the years of following laws and rules and regulations and getting things right and trying to make themselves good with God, trying to atone for their own wrongdoing. And Isaiah says, just wait. Wait on the Lord. It's all you have to do. But what does this waiting on the Lord actually look like? I'm much more of a practical person. I would prefer that someone give me something to do that I can go and do that day. And it doesn't always work out like that. And so I found this part really hard to grasp. What does waiting on the Lord look like? I wait for Claire to get ready when we're going for dinner, but I don't think that's what it means. Here's my best guess. Waiting on the Lord means acknowledgement that until God acts, We are simply waiting because no other action will suffice. Maybe that doesn't narrow it down enough for people, because it is such a broad thing. But the bottom line is we as God's people should be peaceable. We should be meditating on the Lord, listening to his word, knowing God's presence. That is waiting on God. I think sometimes we maybe try to be God or to do godly things, to do God, right? And it's this idea that we can just do anything and say that it's God's name, and if it works out, it's class. But that's not always how it works. God has his will, and we don't fully know it, and sometimes we just have to wait. And when we feel tired and weak and frustrated and empty and not where we ought to be, it's probably because we're running ourselves dry, trying to do the things that only God can do. Instead, we are told to wait upon the Lord. It's the only prescription that's given here. Wait upon God, and he will renew your strength. We see this in different spots in the Bible. Waiting is not just killing time, as you or I would as we wait to go to dinner, as we wait to see a football game kick off, or a friend to arrive at your home. But rather, it's a confident expectation that the Lord will do his work regardless of our input, feelings, and actions. Because he is the one who is unchanging, and we are the ones who are blown with the wind. This is where we finish. It's also where now we get a bit more of a fuller picture of what's going on in Isaiah 40. We have a frustrated people of God, angry, forgetful, downcast about the cards that life has dealt for them. And their assumption is that because life has been a rinse and repeat of having to earn anything that is worth having, that it's going to be the same with God. That they haven't earned enough favor. But instead, the Lord sends a prophet to tell them, no. All you have to do is depend on me. Rely on me for everything. And I will renew your strength. When you are weak, when you are faint, I will give you strength. When you are powerless, I will give you power. When you forget, let me remind you of who I am. But what about us as we close? Do you feel weak and tired and faint and lacking faith? Do you not see God the same way you used to? Wait upon the Lord. You will be renewed. It is a promise of Scripture, and as Bible-believing Christians, we wholeheartedly believe the truth of Scripture, and this is one of them. Wait upon the Lord. Since it's Christmas, I'll tie it up in a wee bow that hopefully finishes it all for us. This amazing story of God's grace and mercy to us, to the people of Israel, it's an incredibly beautiful clue about one story that was later to come. A person who would come, who would give his life for a people who could not atone for their own sins. That person would die on a cross for those who have forgotten, for those who would accuse him of not loving them. His name is Jesus. And it's incredible that as we read throughout all of the Old Testament and we get to the New Testament, that it's all just part of this big, amazing story. That we can rely and depend on God to do what we cannot do. Today, it's my greatest desire that all of us will know this God. Today, it's my greatest desire that all of us will know Jesus. You need not work your way to renewal today, this 1st of January. The new year does not need to be the new you in the physical sense, but perhaps it needs to be the new you in the spiritual sense. Perhaps as we are faced with the truth of God this morning, we do need some New Year's resolutions. Will we wait upon the Lord? Or will we just do what we have always done and make ourselves tired and weak and powerless and frail? My encouragement to you, for some time, wait upon the Lord. Let's pray.